the Indian tradition has identified two concepts, Swara and Shruti, to account for musical sound. So, musical sound in the Indian tradition, two very important concepts certainly are Swara and Shruti. We have other concepts too, like Nada, but we won't go into that. So, let us spend some time trying to understand how the Sanskrit tradition specifically has tried to understand the concept of Swara and Shruti, which is also very closely related to Swara. This tradition that I am speaking of is something that I have referred to earlier, that there is a textual tradition that tries to describe, that tries to understand the music. This is called the Lakshana Grantha tradition. Lakshana means grammar and Grantha is a text. So, a treatise is dealing with grammar. These texts are more descriptive of the music, and there are also attempts to understand concepts like Swara and Shruti. Now, how does the Lakshana Grantha tradition talk of Swara? Now, Swara is found in very old texts, as old as 2000 years ago. Natya Shastra, Naradiya Shiksha, these two are very important ancient treatises that talk of the music of those times. And many of these terms, Swara, Shruti, Tala, Laya, and many more, they are still in use today, 2000 years later. Certainly the meanings of those words have altered subtly and not so subtly, but the fact is that we are still using terminology that our ancestors were using 2000 or 2500 years ago. Now let us look at Swara. This word has been used to denote musical notes from very long ago, from the Natya Shastra, Naradiya Shiksha times. And the seven Swaras, they are given names. The Natya Shastra talks of it as like this: Shadjascha Rishabhaschaiva Gandharo Madhyamastatha Panchamo Dhaivataschaiva Saptamo Atha Nishadavan. So these are the names of the seven Swaras: Shadja, Rishabha, Gandhara, Madhyama, Panchama, Dhaivata, Nishada. These were the names given to the seven Swaras. And later on, Sari, Gama, Padhani. This is also used to refer to these Swaras. Now, there are some very intriguing aspects to how the Swaras are talked of in the Lakshana Granthas. For instance, the seven notes are associated with animals and birds. For instance, the first note, Shadja, is associated with the peacock. Rishabha, the Ri, is associated with a bull. Gandhara is associated with a goat. Madhyama with a heron. Panchama with a cuckoo bird. Dhaivata with a horse. And Nishada with the elephant. And each Swara is also associated with a kala, with a particular rasa, and finally with a particular deity, a devata, Swara devata. There is a table here for you to take a look at. So just to take the Shadja, the first Swara, it is associated with the peacock. Its color is Padma Patra Prabha. it has the color of the petal of a lotus, that redness. And it's the deity is Vanni or fire, and the rasa or the mood, emotion that it is associated with is Veera, Adbhuta and Raudra. Veera is valor, Adbhuta is wonder, and Raudra is anger. And you can see all the 7 swaras have these associations, and these are found in texts like Sangeeta Ratnakara and others. Beginning from Naradiya Shiksha, you have such associations in many texts across millennia. In fact, what you see here, this is a painting by a versatile and highly respected musician painter called S. Rajam. He has depicted many aspects of Carnatic music in his own stylized paintings and sketches. In fact, his renditions of the important main composers of Carnatic music are seen everywhere, wherever Carnatic music has a presence. Now these paintings of the Swaras, he based these paintings on the textual material of Sangeeta Kalpadruma, which is a 20th century Lakshana Grantha by Muttaya Bhagavatar, who was a leading musician and composer of the early parts of the 20th century. The painting that you see right now, it is a painting of Devata, the 6th note. And we can see that there is the image of a horse. The presiding deity is the sage Tumburu, who is also seen, and there are many more details all drawn from Sangeeta Kalpadruma, the text, the 20th century text written by Muttaya Bhagavatar. What do we make of all this? First, and quite importantly, it is that the swara, the note, is personified. It is given a personification. It is associated with a deity, which makes it sacred. So both a sacredness and a personality is bestowed upon the musical note. And in the attitude of many musicians, in India, in fact, music is considered divine. There is a sacredness associated with music. Our musical instruments are sacred. We treat them like personifications of deities. A tambura or a veena is treated with utmost reverence, the same reverence that you would accord to a deity. We would never think of playing an instrument with our feet. Now, and many musicians, their approach, their attitude towards Swara is tinged with this reverence. And later on in the tradition, we also have raga dhyana shlokas. That is, shlokas that you're supposed to meditate on to evoke the raga. So now all this, in a sense, all this attempt to talk about swaras as personalities, all this really makes sense in the overall idea of music in the Indian mind. What music means to the Indian mind. Coming back to terra firma, where we were before we launched into this domain of personifying swaras and evoking deities. We were talking of swaras and how it is treated in the tradition, in the Lakshana Granthas. Swameva rajate iti swara. This is an oft quoted etymology of swara. Now, what is etymology? Etymology is trying to understand a word by going to its roots. And in Sanskrit, there is perhaps, it is sometimes stretched to an overkill. Etymology is something that any Sanskrit writer loves to engage in, and it can get to an overkill sometimes, but very often it's also very creative. And they take the word and they try to figure out how it can be explained in order to fit what it actually refers to. For instance, the word Sanskrit itself. Sanskrit, of course, is an anglicized version of the original word Samskritam. Oh, Samskritam, one etymological derivation of it is Samyakkritam. It is Samskritam. Samyakkritam means that which is well formed. So, the language is indeed well formed, and therefore the name. So in the case of Swara, one very common etymological derivation is given like this: Swameva Rajate. Here it means that which shines on its own. Rajate, Swameva, it shines on its own. Now, this is actually the etymological derivation that grammarians give. See, the word Swara occurs in other contexts also, like grammar, Sanskrit grammar, and Vedic recitation. Sanskrit grammar, as many of you would know, it's a highly sophisticated tradition of writing grammar. They have the astonishing Ashtadhyayi of Panini and many commentaries on it. And grammar was taken to great heights in Sanskrit. In the context of grammar, Swara means vowel. Vowel in Sanskrit is a, e, u, a, I, o, and so on. These vowels are called Swara. And the grammarian explains it in the same way, Swameva Rajate, that which shines on its own. And what does it mean there? It means that a vowel can manifest itself in a way that a consonant cannot. So the consonant in Sanskrit, for instance, is k. Actually, a consonant in Sanskrit is unpronounceable without the help of a vowel. In English, we can say K or P or M. These are consonants we can say in English. But in Sanskrit, it is impossible, because that is not how the consonant is conceived. A consonant in Sanskrit is just the sound k, k. And when it takes the support of a vowel, say if k takes the support of a, then it becomes k. If k takes the support of a, then it becomes k. So the consonant or the vyanjana is something that does not shine on its own. The vowel, on the other hand, the swara, shines on its own. So what does it mean in the context of music then, to say that a musical note is something that shines on its own? That is something that scholars have pondered over. The later works like Sangeeta Ratnakara give a slightly different etymology, which is perhaps more apt in the context of music. Sangeeta Ratnakara says this: Shrutyanantara bhavi yaha snigdho anurananatmakaha swato ranjayati shrotrachittam swaswaram uchyate. It is anurananatmaka. Anuranana is resonance. So the swara is full of resonance, in a sense that an ordinary speech is not. When I am saying come here, it is not as resonant as saying there is a resonance in the musical note which is not there in other kinds of sound. That's what makes it a swara. And also the etymology here is given as swato ranjayati iti. It pleases the mind of the listener. In itself, just the sound itself is pleasing, and therefore it is called Swara.